So I started my career 26 years ago working for an organisation that's little heard of now, a company called Austin, which was like the daddy of recruitment marketing. And since then I've worked with some of the leading recruitment marketing agencies worldwide, people like TMP, Bernard Houdez, Penna, and most recently Barker's, and most recently part of Publicis division in terms of talent communications before joining Format 18 months or so ago. I've worked with a number of some of the world's biggest employers, really helping them to articulate, to develop and to communicate their brand, their employee value proposition to the markets, organisations like BP, BT, Ernst & Young, Philip Morris, Tesco, which has been really interesting stuff. There have been some quite interesting challenges within that. So, working with BP, for instance, after the Gulf disaster, and trying to persuade graduates to come to the business with a toxic reputation, some real damage there. Working with police forces against a backdrop of the Stephen Lawrence inquiry, trying to help them target and meet the diversity targets, recruitment targets. So there have been some really interesting challenges within that. Obviously, more recently, having joined Format, I've spent the bulk of my time working with recruitment businesses, helping them to develop corporate brands. And that's been a really interesting journey, kind of applying my knowledge from both sides, now working together, and now able to work with both agencies and employers, because actually it's the same process, it's the same methodology, it's many of the same disciplines. So it's been an interesting journey. Well, that's a really interesting question. I mean, I think there's a lot of nonsense written about branding, and if we think about it, branding is, really is about an organisation's reputation, whether that's a reputation with employers, or potential employers, or investors, or customers, or whoever it happens to be. So I'll apologise now because my colleagues have heard this quote, 1,000 times. I use it for almost every meeting, every presentation. But it's my favourite quote in this context by Jeff Bezos, who's the founder and CEO of Amazon, who says that your brand is what people say about you when you leave the room. So if we sort of put aside the fact that people have been thinking about formal branding, I guess for the last corporate branding for the last sort of 30-40 years, employer branding perhaps for the last 20 or so, and I guess recruitment agencies have started to recognise the need for for branding. I guess perhaps a bit more recently. Actually, the concept of reputation and thinking about an organisation's reputation in the marketplace has been something that's been with us since the beginning of time. I've got two answers for that, a corporate answer and a personal answer, and I'll start with the corporate if I may. There's an awful lot of noise in the marketplace, so it's been quite difficult to determine how many marketing messages each one of us is subjected to every day. But the most accurate piece of research, which came out of the US, would suggest that in kind of traditional established economies like Europe, EU, UK, US, each of us is subject to about 3,500 marketing messages every single day. That's an awful lot of noise, and it's an awful lot of noise against which, or loud backdrop against which your brand, your service, your product, your employee proposition has to stand out. So I think what branding does, if you get it right, if you really have a clear strategy, if you understand who your audiences are, what it is that you're trying to say to them, but also what the reality, what their experience is like, and you can bring that to life, that gives you a fighting chance, that gives you a better opportunity to really stand out your brand, your product, your service proposition, above all that noise, above those 3,500 messages. So I think it's really important from that perspective. On a personal level, my own preference is to work at a more strategic level with clients, and I know that's an overused word, it's used quite a lot, but I do think reality is that branding is a catalyst to have those kind of organisations between a marketing agency and its clients. Branding, means that you need to understand where the business or the organisation is coming from, where is it trying to get to, and how is it going to make that journey. And I think for me personally, if I look back on my career, certainly the most successful relationships that I've had with clients, and that's equally true at Format, the most successful relationships that we have with our clients, are where we're working at that more strategic level, and very often that's because we're doing brand development work with them. Obviously, having a strong brand or reputation means that regardless of whether it's a recruitment brand or an employer brand, you're going to find it easier to attract more customers, more candidates, or of course you'll be able to attract and recruit the kind of people you need to run your business. So that's obviously the service level why organisations want to make that investment. And I think if you look below that, I think the benefits are perhaps a bit more subtle, but a bit more significant. I think a strong brand, a strong reputation can influence how well you engage with those audiences, and that can have obviously a direct impact on the kind of business you do, on the profitability of your business, on the kind of people that you employ, and how engaged they are with the business and how effective they are in the first 6-12 months on retention and so forth. So I think it has, some real business benefits. Brand tends to be looked at, or has been looked at perhaps in the past, in quite abstract terms. It's one of those sort of fluffy things that doesn't have perhaps an intrinsic value. But the reality is that brand is as much a part of your business assets as your facilities, or as your IP, or as other assets that the business owns. And as such, it can be measured in real hard business metrics. So you can measure it in terms of profitability, or sales, or cost of recruitment, cost of client acquisition, employee performance, retention, and so forth. So I think those are the real business benefits of brand. So that's really interesting. I think that if we talk about brand as a reputation, and there's only so much of it we can control, actually the real impact on brand is how you treat your customers, or your employees, or your candidates, because those are the things that are impacting on reputation. The biggest trend affecting brand over the last 5 or 10 years is absolutely the advent and growth of social. I can have a really great experience, or I can have a really bad experience, either as a consumer, or as a customer, or as a candidate, or as an employee, and I can go and share that experience with all of my followers, all of my friends and networks, and that's having an immediate, that's having a massive impact on brand and organisation's reputation. If we look ahead, to answer your question, the driving trend within social and within technology right now, of course, is the growth of mobile, and that's really affecting the way that people engage with their own social platforms. So if you look at things like Facebook with its 1.3 billion users globally and so forth, the bulk of users using sites like Facebook and Twitter are doing so through their mobile handsets, or their mobile platforms. And of course, what that means is that I don't even have to wait until I get home, having had a bad day at work, before I can go and Facebook post or tweet or share my experience. I can do it there and then. So I think that's the trend over the next 5 or 10 years. We're going to see this rapid increase and a sort of a real-time impact on brand experiences. I think when we look back over the changes in the last 5 or 10 years in terms of the recruitment marketplace, and I'm talking about from a recruitment agency perspective or employer perspective, is that whilst there's been a massive amount of development and progress in terms of social tools, in terms of mobile technology, in terms of our understanding of how to harness and utilise some of those tools, and therefore some organisations are doing it really, really well and really utilising the technology available to be able to manage and communicate and articulate their brand and engage with their audiences. What surprises me is that so many organisations are still doing it so badly. So you look at so many employers' sites and recruitment agency sites, and actually what they, their message stream effectively, the stuff that they're broadcasting out, and it is broadcasting, it is one way, it's just job after job after job. And you can look at their Facebook pages, or their Twitter feeds, or their job, you look at job boards, or their job sites and so forth. And it's just job after job. And what it doesn't do is communicate the why, and what it doesn't do is engage. And I think that's what's surprising, that they haven't really taken advantage of the opportunities. They've kind of done what they always used to do. When I started off doing recruitment advertising 25 years ago, and they put it into a technology space, but they've not thought about the brand and how it impacts on their reputation.